in this modern era of super fast PCs. So you kind of want to stay as far ahead of the curve as you can, and 2048 right now is considered to be a pretty hard to crack kind of number, and I'll show you what you get and what that 2048 means in a minute. We're just going to, in this case, never expire it, but you can set expiration dates to these keys so that the things stop working there. The other thing that it's going to ask me for is a passphrase. So it wants me to actually encrypt my encryption key with another password. So just make sure that they match up. So we'll type that in there and we'll hit submit. And now what it's going to do is generate a key, and this takes a while because it's doing a lot of random number calculation. It needs to make something as random as possible so that it's harder to guess what the key is. So we're going to submit this, and I think we're good. So now what we're going to do is go over to our display keys, and now you see that my lontechjunkie.com@gmail.com has a key, and you see there's two keys here because this means I have a public and a private key. All right, we've created now two keys in this process. The first is the private key, and that needs to stay private. It needs to stay on your computer and never leave it, or you can back it up, but back it up to something like a flash drive or something like that, because you don't want that to get out on the internet at all. And the reason is that even though you've protected it with a password, that password is not as secure as the key itself. So if somebody were to be able to brute force your password, which is a lot shorter than the 2048-bit key that we just created, they could still be able to very easily hack into your encrypted communications. And I know it sounds a little paranoid, but remember, you're dealing with state-run agencies that have a lot of resources behind them to crack passwords. So create that private key. I'll show you how to back it up, but don't put that out on the internet. The nice thing about what I want to do is let people know that we actually have a public key to share so that they can encrypt stuff and send it to us. So we're going to click the export button here, and we have some options, but I will say just go to display public key. And this is it, and this is what people will use to send encrypted communications to us. And this is safe to display out in the wild. In fact, you could email this to people. It doesn't matter, because this is kind of a one-way ticket in that with the public key, people can encrypt things to you, but they can't decrypt it unless they have your private key. Again, this is why it's important to keep the private key private, because that's kind of the whole key to unlocking what someone's going to send you. So we're going to take this public key, and we could email it to somebody, but what I'm going to do is go over to the MIT PGP key server, and I'm going to go put it in there. So it's at pgp.mit.edu, port number 11371. Again, this is still a little computer geeky, but it is something pretty helpful to be able to have people find you. And there's other PGP tools that look to this directory so they can find you to email you. So I'm just going to paste that PGP block in there, and then I'm going to go over to submit this key to the key server, and it added it. That's it. So if I went back to the MIT thing to search it, and I just search for my name, here I am, and here's lontechjunkie@gmail.com, and you could even give out this link here to other people. I put it in as like an email signature that if you want to, communicate with me privately, click on this link and you'll get my public key. And this is compatible across a whole bunch of different PGP apps, not just Mailvelope. There's a whole bunch of other stuff which we'll cover in future episodes that you can use with your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device, Windows, Mac. There's a whole bunch of different ways to use this encryption system. So we have it up there on the public key server. And now what we're going to do is hop over to our email system here, and we're going to send myself an email. So we're going to go here, and I'm going to compose a message. Now, let me zoom out and just go over to the right spot here. Zoom a little bit further, move this over here. So we'll zoom into our message, and you notice this thing just popped up. And this is what Mailvelope does, is that it puts a little overlay when you're typing an email to somebody. And what that will do is allow us to type in an encrypted message that Google doesn't get. Because remember, once you start typing in here, it will save it to Google's server, and now it's retrievable by a government agency, presumably. So we'll just say, hello, this is an encrypted message. And what we're going to do is click the new button here. And you'll see now that it's pulled up a whole different editor. And this is being edited locally now on this computer. So everything I type in here is not getting saved as a draft up in Google's headquarters there. It's staying just on my computer locally. So it's presumably not going to send this unencrypted text that I will be typing in unencrypted back to the Google servers. So now we're going to type in an encrypted message. And then you see the lock here, because if I just do transfer now, it's just going to give me a warning here saying, hey, you didn't encrypt this yet. So we're going to go to the lock here. And what we're going to do is pick who in our keychain we're going to send this email to. So I'm going to pick my, I'll do my me.com address. We have a Mac version there. So we'll say that. We'll click the add button. And I could add multiple people here also. And it would encrypt it separately for each of their public keys, so that if I send it to two different people, even though they're getting the same message, they have to use their own encryption keys to decrypt it. So another little safeguard there. So I'll hit OK. And now you see that little string of text we had written got turned into this gibberish. And it looks a lot like the keys that I showed you before, because it's, again, this is an encrypted thing. So we'll hit that. And now what it's doing is it's placing that encrypted text into the message that I am sending to myself. I'm just going to change the address here to my me.com address. And I'm going to click the send button. Okay, so we typed the message in, we encrypted it, we sent it off to the me.com address. And on the other end, if someone was just looking at your account, like a spy at the government or someone else, all they would see is this gibberish coming through here. This is the message that we sent. And without your private key, they would have no way of decrypting that. Now, the important thing to note here is that things that involve the metadata, the things that the NSA looks at a lot, which is who's communicating to whom, encrypting the content of your message doesn't get you away from this notion of people tracking who you're talking to. So you may have to come up with some other means of trying to change that, at least if you don't want the government to know who you're talking to. But in many ways, this likens the U.S. mail, where you have an envelope and the government is photographing the envelopes but not the content inside of them. So the content of the message is encrypted and protected, but those headers are still being sent in the clear, just because that's how email tends to work. So now if we wanted to decrypt the message, we would need to have our private key in-house. And the way we're going to do that here, I'm just going to go into my Gmail account that I set up here. And if I look at the message here, you'll notice that this icon pops up here that says, hey, detected a PGP message. And if I hit this and type in my password for the me.com account, it'll go in and decrypt that. What's interesting is that if you don't have the private key, you can't even decrypt the message you sent. It's that secure. So just keep all of those things in mind when you send these messages off to people, that you may not be able to look at it again after it gets delivered. So now, what I would do is, if you wanted to go and send a message to somebody, you're going to need to have them send their key to you, their public key to you, so that you can load them into your directory. So we're going to take a look now and add a few more keys to our account so we can communicate with more people. So we're going to grab a public key off of someone's website, and this is Leo Laporte. He's a technology podcaster, quite popular amongst us geeks, and what he's done on his homepage is basically linked to his public key. So we're going to click on this, and it's going to take us back to that MIT server. So he's put it up there just like we did, and we can just go ahead and grab this. You could also download the file, but we'll just grab it and just show you how it works. You can see his key is a lot longer than the one we made, because his key is I think a 4096 block key. So his key size is double the size that we made. And that, again, that's if you want to be really super secure, make your key as big as you want to make it. So we're going to pop back to our settings here for Mailvelope, and we're going to go to Import Keys. And all we're going to do here is just paste that in. So all that text we just grabbed from the website, we pasted it in there. We hit Submit, and it says success. Leo Laporte's key is in there. So now if we wanted to send Leo Laporte an email, we go back to our email compose button here, and we'll just type in an email to Leo Laporte, and I think it's leo@leoville.tv. I don't have him built on this account yet. And we'll say testing email. By the way, if you send him an email, he will respond to you and say that he got it. So he's been really cool about spreading this technology. So we'll click this like we did before, and if we go over here, we'll see now that Leo Laporte is showing up in our list of keys. We'll hit that, hit OK, And now we've, again, encrypted a message that he'll be able to look at. Now, one last thing we want to do is just back up that private key so that we don't lose all the encrypted messages that we get if we have a hard drive crash. And all you do is select the key pair, click X.
Emang hari ini puasa kata gua. Oh iya, Jumatan kata gua. Iya. Kenapa? Iya. Agak jaga pos anjir.